Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Vegan World 2026 Moonshot podcast. And today it's going to be Solstice Day. It is Solstice Day. And today we are talking to the million vegan grandmothers and two special grandmothers. I'm going to add them to the stream. There's Tami Hay and Dona Sauerburger. Thank you so much for being here. It's exciting to be talking to both of you. You have really changed my life, both of you. So I'm going to start with you, Donna. I came across your book, your mother's book, in June for the first time. Okay, it was actually put in a bag that was given to me, and I never really looked at it. I just saw the title and I said, okay, I'll read it later. And then on my way to Glasgow, I decided that wasn't going to be my reading for the plane. And I took it, and it was amazing. It was really amazing. It confirmed a lot of things that I had known, but it basically put it in very scientific terms so that I could understand. Because until then, it was all, spiritual things that were being told by others, by spiritual masters. And you take it with a pinch of salt, right? So, as a scientist. But when a psychologist, a clinical psychologist, has gone through it and she tells you exactly the same thing, it just confirmed everything. So I said, okay, now I have the responsibility to do these things. So it's incredible. Tell us a bit about how the book was written.
Oh, wow. First of all, I'm so honored and pleased to be here because I didn't know much I didn't know anything about you until I started looking into it. And I'm so impressed with all that you're doing and all that you've done. And on behalf of the world, thank you. And the million grandmother vegans. It's funny, we came on and I realized, wow, vegan grandmother. Wow, that's really, and a million of them. And I'm thinking, well, wait a minute. You are a vegan grandmother. And so I really appreciate, Sailesh, what thank you for that. Wow, how did it come about? I do want to say that I've been on a mission for the last 6 months to make sure that this book gets into the hands of people who need it. And so the story of you getting it is it's so touching. And I had sent about 80 copies of the book to Judy Carmen to give away to everybody at the retreat. And so it's almost like divine intervention that you happen to get a copy stuck into your bag. Thank you, Judy. And the fact, what you said about it is so touching. I'll just go briefly through the story of how this came to be. But I will say that I am giving these books away to make sure that everybody has access to it. And it can change your life. It has changed mine. I first read it when Mom was writing it, Dr. Jean Robert Bayard. She was Jean Bayard until Dad died. Robert Bayard died. And then she officially incorporated his name into hers, Jean Robert Bayard. And they were a team, the two of them, of advocates for as long as I can remember. I remember growing up that the NAACP, I don't know what that, the National Association of Colored People or something like that, would have their picnics at our place. And so, it was, and Mom took me to the March on Washington in 1963. And then we heard Martin Luther King. I have to say, I didn't pay that much attention. I was more interested in what are they doing up in those trees? I bet they can get a good view from there. So anyway, I wasn't, but she was an advocate as long as I've known her, a very strong advocate. Went to jail a couple times. the issue back then, I remember I was helping her dad, and she asked me to, when I was in college, to help verify that there was discrimination going on. So I would go in and ask for an apartment. I would go look for an apartment, and yes, ma'am, we have lots here. We, lots of choices. And then a Black person would go in, and oh gosh, we don't have any apartments available. They're all closed, but come back later. Thank you very much. And then, just to show that didn't happen miraculously, it was followed by another white person who said, oh, we have lots available for you. And the idea was that I was supposed to then go testify. And I never had to do that, I think, because they they knew they had the right. So it was settled. But, that just goes, she was always an advocate. And in the early years, it was primarily civil rights. And then toward the end, it was predominantly animal rights. And so she was a strong advocate and suffered all the things that advocates suffer. At one point, she did not want to be part of this race. When she was arrested for Stanford, I'm sorry, Charlotte, but she was protesting outside of Stanford and was arrested, and decided she was going to, she wanted to go to trial. And the idea was that she would testify for herself and convince the jury that it was justified. And when they had to convict her, because she said she did it, they weren't there to judge was it okay to do that. They were there to judge, did she do it? And she did it. So, and when they didn't, say, oh, honey, yeah, you did it, but, you had a right to do that. She concluded that, after all the years of advocacy that she had done, that this just proved that the human race was evil, and she didn't want to be a part of it, and willed herself to die. And, she lived another 20 years, and she always said later, she kind of laughed and said all she managed to do with willing herself to die was get a real severe case of the shingles. But so anyway, a strong advocate, suffered the pain that many advocates feel. And it doesn't matter whether it's animal rights or what it is, climate change, civil rights, abortion. And I often sympathize with people who are speaking for those who cannot speak for themselves. And there's a lot of pain in that. There's just no getting around it. Whatever you're advocating for. I mean, I've advocated for accessibility to traffic signals for blind and deafblind people. And so, it doesn't matter what you're advocating for. There's pain in it when it doesn't happen, when you're struggling with it. And so she suffered a lot of the pain to a severe degree. She was also a psychologist, as you said. So she worked with hundreds of people who were suffering, for perceived realities, and help them deal with that. So she had the two things, and she was raised by a Christian minister, and then started looking into Buddhism and other religions, and so she had a very spiritual side as well, and so put the three together. Plus, like you said, a scientist is often, going to look for facts and research and whatever.
Right.
So she had it was like a trifecta of everything to put into a book, So when she got into her 60s, she said, she thought she had to write it down and put it into, for other people to learn what she had learned over 50 years of advocacy and helping people. So, when I first read the manuscript, this was about maybe almost 20 years ago. And, and I was struggling with my own little issues of advocacy and working with people and trying to get things to change, changing my little world. And like you, there were several chapters that I read. One was Building Beliefs to Support You. And my favorite was The Big You, where you kind of imagine yourself as part of a bigger
Right.
group, and you can expand and have yourself realize that you're part of the universe. There's nothing that you're not a part of, and so looking at your challenge from that perspective. And then I always like to say, well, that's all well and good, but what if you're dealing with evil people? How can you be part of evil people? Like Mom? I can't be part of this race because they're just evil. And so one of the chapters, again, one of my favorites, is dealing with your enemy and realizing you guys are on the same team, or making yourself understand that you're part of the same team and you're all part of one. And again, she has a lovely exercise that's so helpful to help you understand you and your enemy are both the same. You're both good people, and love yourself for what mistakes you've made, and love your enemy for the mistakes that they're making. So it's got a lot of chapters in there that helped change me in my approach, especially like the big U.
Right.
I realized that, I was fighting with these administrators who are not, and then realizing, oh, you've done the same thing, Donna. You're no different than they are. They're the same as you, and love yourself and love them. And I have several experiences where I accidentally hugged people that I was like opposed to, and it just changed the way that we work together. I don't know. I'm going on and on and on. Anyway, so it did change me as well. And so she wrote it, and it took about 10 years putting this all together. And as you said, she has a lot of quotes in there, from activists and research and whatnot. And so about, when was this? So she died in 2011. And as she was dying, the book still wasn't published. And so her grandson, my youngest son, Stephan, promised her he would publish it and get it out. And I remember her smiling as I promised that I would promote it. I would get, and I just remember that smile on her face. So anyway, so she died, and it took Stephan about 7 years because she had different versions. One, this is silly, but she used the terms that Gandhi used of courageous and violent thinking. And I always thought, violent? Come on, Mom. That's a little harsh, isn't it? Like when you look the other way, when things are going on, that's violent. That's not my definition of violent. People are going to misunderstand it. They're going to turn away. Why don't you use something else? And I finally convinced her. I forget what the term was. There was courageous thinking and maybe non-courageous. I forget what term she came up with. And so when Stephan was going through all her papers and manuscripts and whatever to try to capture the version that Mom intended, he ended up, and I've forgiven him for this, he ended up using the word violent is in there a lot. And so, so anyway, it took him 7 years to put it all together, get it published. And so he got it published in 2017, I think. And we went around to the animal rights conference and deposited in various tables, including where Judy Carmen was, and that's how she ran into it. And her quotes on the book.
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, so and we did go on a little promotional tour. It was all my people who work blind. I'm an orientation and mobility specialist, so I teach people blind and deafblind people how to, use a cane and cross streets and whatnot. So we went to our conferences with, a workshop on becoming a better advocate and taking care of yourself while you're advocating. And that was really enlightening, working with him and spreading the word. And so I happen to have, if anybody wants them, more than 3,000 copies of that book in my basement. And we're in the process of figuring out, I think I've got it figured out, but how to make it digital. So so we're debating, and Sailesh, that this, that we're deciding whether to go onto Amazon, and because I wanted the book to be free, but they funny thing, Amazon doesn't want to put free stuff up on their website, so
Right.
so it may be $1 or something like that, but to get it digitally out there. So anyway, we're working on that. So I don't want to take all your time. I don't.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
All right. So anyway, so at about the time that he published the book, Stephan developed anorexia nervosa, and struggled with that for the rest of his life. And in last January, he died of that. And I'll just tell you a little story. I consider him to be. Oh, I thought I'd taken the phone out of here. Now I have no way to hang it up because it's only the face. Sorry about that.
That's Stephan.
That's Stephan. Hey, Mom, you're doing great.
Yes.
Sorry about that. If I had the phone here, I could hang it up, but I put it in the other room so we wouldn't hear it. Anyway. So when he first went to the hospital, we realized he realized he needed treatment. And so we found a place that would respect vegans and let them eat according to their ethical, considerations. And he improved greatly. He got a better aspect on, perspective on life, learned strategies to deal with the trauma and the anxiety that comes with that, and gained weight, which is only a symptom of, the problem. So
Right.
And later he was hospitalized again because he needed more treatment. And so we tried to get back into that program, and turns out because it was out of state, they never got any money because the insurance wouldn't pay for it. So he couldn't go back there. And here in Maryland, all the programs consider veganism to be a symptom of the disease. And he finally got one to agree to let him, to honor his veganism. And so he let himself into it. And a week later, they did not respect it. They kept coercing him to drop the veganism and eat things that he ethically couldn't. And a week later, he had lost weight and was getting so bad that they wouldn't release him. So he was held there against his will. And we finally got him out. And so he couldn't get any treatment that would respect his veganism. And so he went to Taiwan to stay with a monk that he loved and loved him, and died about a year later. Anyway, so now I feel at one point, I'm glad to hear you say that, Sailesh, because at one point I'm thinking, well, maybe I can have a fire in the basement. And, because I felt overwhelmed with the burden of these two precious people who had worked so hard to get this out to people, to help everybody who had been in their situation. And so anyway, but I had what my mother calls in the book a daring thought that I would take this on, do workshops. So anyway, we have it on the website. It's a Magissa. That was her avatar, magissa.org. We have workshops recorded there, and I will love to come out and do workshops on the book, on different chapters. And so there you go. I think that's, sorry I took so much time, but that's the story, and I'm sticking to it. So
yeah, wonderful, Dona. Thank you so much for all the work you're doing, and it's making a difference in people's lives.
Apparently, thank you so much for that. Yeah,
and it's all about taking care of ourselves first, right? And which is where Tami and Deborah, yeah.
I'm sorry to take any more time, but I was looking at the book last night because there's so many chapters in it, and one of them, I was saying when Stephan was trying to shorten it, I said, Stephan, why don't you get rid of that one? using hurry to find peace or something like that. I forget what it is. And he said, Mom, that's my favorite chapter. And he said he would go to it often. And I don't remember if it was to deal with his anxiety or help him concentrate, but that was his favorite chapter. So it's in there. But there are different chapters that appeal to different things. And so this one of them is to be unshakably happy. And I'm thinking, come on, Mom, it's a little, really. I had read this back when I was helping him go through it, but I had forgotten it. And it's powerful. It's powerful. It says, number one, you not only deserve to be happy, you can't function unless you're happy. You can't be an effective advocate unless you're happy. So it gives you permission and makes you work to make yourself happy and allow yourself to be happy. And then it has some exercises. Each chapter has exercises that are very helpful. So yeah, it's a powerful book. So.
Yeah, we're going to tap into it. In fact, I'm going to invite you to come and do workshops during our convergence.
Yes, thank you. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And then, speaking of taking care of ourselves, which is exactly what Tami and Deborah are working on with the Million Vegan Grandmothers. So welcome, Tami and Deborah. And tell us about the program that you're offering people starting January.
So, first of all, I'd like to, say hi to Donna, if that would be okay. And hi, Deborah. Thank you for joining. And Donna, I lost a son too, and it was health related. And it lit a fire under me to do my best to help as many people that are still here breathing. And that every breath is such a gift. There's no guarantees how long we're going to stay. Right? And so it really did that for me. It really allowed me to know what I'm here for. And I'd like to just say a couple things about the book, because I went through it yesterday and this morning. So it's called How to Think If You Want to Change the World, Spiritual Practices for Social Activism. We all need this so much. So first, you all notice in your quote unquote enemy, and then find that same trait in yourself. One of the most powerful movies that I've seen was Dead Man Walking, and it was a nun working with people and saying, haven't we all been so angry that something terrible could have happened, that we could have done something terrible? And that's what your mother was saying, and then make a decision how you're going to eliminate that fault in yourself, and see both of you as good and people making mistakes, right? And then to bring that humanism into our spiritual experience. And then be courageous. Be courageous with your decisions and your communication. So I don't think that violent was the wrong word. I think Stephen had it, because look at all the people reading about nonviolent communication. They use that word violent for a reason. I had an encounter recently with someone I loved, and it felt violent to me in the moment. And so to realize our impact on other people and how we can say, well, when have I done that in my life? When have I been so angry I forgot that there was another being in front of me that had this whole life? And your mother gives lots of examples of that in her book about how, well, when we're angry with our mother for feeling abandoned, do we really know what they've been through? And I think about that with my mother often, where she came from in the backwoods and married off and not being treated well. And how does that, and what do we bring forward, right? And then we be the change. We be the more conscious beings in our lives, right? So I remember when my first study was in early childhood education, and it was always brought to us to care for the person, but not the behavior. And I really think that needs to be elevated, because we make it about the person and it's the behavior, and why, and understanding the behavior so that we can bring compassion to it. Not tolerating the behavior, saying, no, that's where my boundaries are, but saying, I see a beautiful person right in front of me. And simultaneously to care. And she wasn't just saying for ourselves, for the other, but to hold that caring within ourselves, to know what we're capable of in that moment, how much we can care without losing ourselves, but to still care about the situation, care about the beings, care about the animals. And as Dr. Will Tuttle says so eloquently, and Judy Carmen in her books, Homo Ahimsa, and Judy is a vegan grandmother, a Deborah, and as you will be joining. And I would just like to end this just with, I would love to read the declaration of the Million Vegan Grandmothers while we're on here and see how it aligns with your mother's work. And I'm so grateful that your son and your mother are in this piece of writing, because you're bringing them to life over and over again. And I know you know that's true, because when you lose a child, they never leave you. They never do. They're everywhere. And very accessible. Very accessible. We, the 1 million vegan grandmothers, join together using the power of love. Love for the children and grandchildren and beings of Mother Earth. Welcome are all people, regardless of gender, age, and official grandmother status, who align with the values of veganism and this declaration. We affirm the rights of all beings to live in a natural, toxic-free environment, which allows all of us to thrive and lead sacred lives, liberated, sovereign, joyful, clean water lives. The power of our love is unstoppable. We do not allow this planet and all who live here to be destroyed. We are creating a vegan world of peace, freedom, and loving kindness for all. We believe that the true nature of human beings and our highest calling is to be kind, as your mother said, compassionate and non-violent partners with, not dominators of all life. We believe that this is the time of the great awakening of humanity, to leave behind the destructive nature of Homo sapiens and become who we really have always been destined to be, what Judy Carmen coined Homo Ahimsas. As vegan grandmothers, we are here to midwife the birth of a new compassionate human and bring in the new era of the Ahimsa world, so that our children and our grandchildren and those of all species can thrive and be free. So here we are, birthing this new life. And I believe that we are all waking up and remembering right now. And it wasn't our fault. It wasn't our fault. So thank you.
That's so beautiful, and as a grandfather, I'm here in service of you. How can I help you? How can I serve you? So tell me. Direct me. Tell me what to do. I'll be happy to do it for you.
Are you talking to the grandmothers?
Yes, I am.
Yes.
Because I think it's the maternal instinct that comes forward and that understands what needs to be done. People need to be fed, and I know I've seen the women in my family just coming together and making sure that everyone is taken care of, and it's just instinctual, right? You don't have to tell them what to do; they do it, and so I think that's where we are as a species. It's about serving the grandmothers and taking, understanding that we are here to play a role. We already played our role of dominators. and now we have to figure out how to clean up the mess that we have made. Yeah.
One of the ways that we're teaching people about food and how easy it can be and how to reset our own being, because I write a lot on personal health, but it's not really personal. It's the personal is the global. And so what we're doing as climate healers and under the umbrella on our Facebook group, Rainbow Food, Rainbow People, 30 Days of Support for Veganuary, We're doing it in conjunction with the World Water Law, Dr. Shelley Ostroff and Jan Golding, in their 7 days of rest, 7daysofrest.org. If you join Rainbow Food, Rainbow People, then you will be able to see that pinned at the top. And I'm teaching on chakra nourishment for the first 7 days and connecting with the colors of the earth and people everywhere, and how it's accessible for everyone to go vegan. Yesterday, we were gifted with a beautiful biologist in our Movement Mondays on climatehealers.org, who found us on Clubhouse, and then she joined us in our meeting, and she says, "Oh, not quite vegan yet." So we were asking about all the food that's available that is vegan in the Amazon, and she's working directly in the rainforest in the Amazon, and she was telling us, it's infinite amount of food, and that she's ready to make that leap. And I think in the very near future, she will be bringing forth a book about all the plant medicine that the Amazonian people are teaching her. That is the roots and the leaves and the forgotten food, when hunting and fishing kind of started taking over for a lot of tribes as one of their main sources of food when there's so much abundance of fruit and veggies. So it'll be a 30-day support, starting with 7 days of sacred, 7 days of rest, and ending with our convergence, Climate Healers Convergence. This time it's called the COP8, as kind of a rebuttal to COP26 that didn't serve vegan food. And we know what's on our plate is what climate is, as the book states, food is climate. So thank you for allowing me.
Excuse me, did you say that they did not serve vegan food?
No. Well, they served 40% of the menu items were vegan, but 60% were not. So, and then all the leaders, they were not eating vegan food. All the world leaders, they were in their own little bubble, and they had a ring of steel surrounding them, and then they went to a museum and had venison or something like that. And of course, they were all driving around in SUVs, and flew in on private jets, stayed in golf courses. And these are the people who are supposed to be solving climate change. And you say, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture. So that's
I think we've done similar things if we look, but wow.
It was just front and center, during COP26. And so that's when I said, we need to be doing it ourselves. We need to do the right thing, have a vegan convergence of the parties. And the parties are just us, as opposed to nations of the world, because clearly they have met 26 times. And it's only after the 26th meeting that they mentioned fossil fuels for the first time in their agreement. And I said, we can't wait another 26 meetings before they mention animal agriculture for the first time. So it's just, and they agreed to burn down forests for another 9 years. That's what they agreed. They agreed to burn down the Amazon for another 9 years. Even Bolsonaro signed it, right? So you can't afford to keep burning down the Amazon. If you haven't figured that out, you're not being serious, right? So it's up to us to do something serious. And that's what we are convening at the end of January, the Vegan Convergence of the Parties, where I invite you all, to help us. Tell us what to do. I mean, your mother's book was amazing in that sense, right? She said, it's your responsibility. If you think there's something wrong, you do it. And I said, okay. Yeah. Because I cannot keep saying there is something wrong with what they're doing. I have to also then step forward and say, what should we be doing instead?
So you can stop being violent.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
What book are you referring to? The mother.
It's called How to Think If You Want to Change the World.
Oh, okay.
It's Donna's mother wrote the book, and Donna's son edited it.
Oh, how wonderful.
Yeah. I'll send out. Actually, one of the grandmothers, she had access to an EPUB version of the book. I think that
Okay.
you had
Yeah,
sent.
we can send that easily. So,
Yeah.
and again, if you go to magissa.org, it has ways to order either the digital for free or for shipping costs. I'll send you a couple copies of the book. And I've been sending several rather than one because I'm hoping that, ooh, this is a good book. I surely could use this. Tom could use this. And so, uh,
Yeah.
giving the book away as which is how Sailesh got his copy. Judy shared it with him. So again, Magissa, magissa.org will we'll have information to get a copy. And also
Could you spell that again, please?
almost like magic, MAGI, and then SSA, like
Okay, thank you.
Sam A, magissa.org.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Donna, a lot of people are listening to audiobooks now, so if you need any help with that, let me know.
Thank you.
I would love to.
Actually, because I felt so alone, and I've never used Kindle, so I went and had it converted and whatnot, and people are having trouble, and I just was overwhelmed with all of this on one person. So Sailesh and Judy Carmen and another person have agreed to help me, sort of like a little advisory team. So
Right.
Sailesh, I'm putting together, I don't want to make it overwhelming, but I'm putting together a little summary of where I'm at and what I have learned, and you guys can help me make decisions to get this out.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And Tami, are you offering to read it for her?
I would love to read it. And the reason why I'm saying that is just like my voice is my voice, but I've been on Clubhouse a lot, and Clubhouse has no visual. And people are saying on Clubhouse, I don't know what it is, but I sure love your voice. And so if you need somebody to read it, I would love to read it. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Wow. For like, for a, what do you call it? A talking book or
Audiobook.
an audio book. Oh,
Right.
Tami.
Mm-hmm.
I think right here on this space, we have made an agreement.
Okay, good.
And let's see if we can get you access to a good recording studio or something.
Yeah.
Where are you?
Sailesh is converting his books onto audio over the January time. And so maybe he'll be able to give you some tips on that. Because once I know, then I would like to do the same with my books. I wrote a book on called Earth Gut, the story of peace, love, and microbes. And then the second one, Sacred Sovereignty. And a lot of people said, that have serious gut issues like Crohn's, colitis, that sort of thing. Earth Gut's kind of specializing in that. They're too sick really to read. I remember that's what I was like for off and on for 3 or 4 years after being an avid reader. So audiobooks are really important for people now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As I said, I work with people who are blind, and for a long time that was all there was the talking books. And so and when you're traveling or whatever, it's so nice to listen to that rather than try and read it on the computer or the Kindle or whatever. Oh, Tami, that would be lovely. Thank you so much.
Yes, it would be an honor.
Sailesh, thank you for asking me on here with these grandmothers.
I knew something magical was going to happen.
Exactly. Here it is, right here.
Right.
Thank you.
Deborah, I would love for you to share a little bit about the grandmothers and us coming together and what that's been like for you.
Well, Tami, oh my goodness. One of the author, I lost her name, the author of Ahimsa.
Judy Carmen.
Judy, yeah, of course. Tami, Judy, and I really wrote the declaration, and it was nice to hear it again.
And with love also. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I actually I have to say it feels kind of a little disorienting. And I know, Sailesh, I heard you say, tell me what to do. And it's kind of, I think we're all in an exploration of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you're doing is fabulous. And I am looking too to see, what resonates with me and where I can bring my talents. And so I feel like it kind of we've jumped out into the sea, and there's no shore in sight, and that it's okay. It's all part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so as far as the vegan grandmothers, I mean, it seems, it's, except for the declaration, I don't know if there's a database, if we're collecting names.
Yeah, we do have one. Uh-huh.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We are having our first Zoom meeting, and are you registered in Climate Killers yet, Deborah?
Am I registered in what?
Have you registered yourself as a grandmother in Climate Killers yet?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah, she's on.
I think so.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's on.
There's been an email, and we're actually having our first Zoom meeting. So what's happened, Donna, is that the grandmothers was just out of Climate Killers. We had a vision of the grandmothers coming together out of a dream and a home, and so we're all just like Deborah said, we've jumped into the sea, and now we need to figure out where we go from there. So we would love you to join and just be part of that brainstorming. So we have our first Zoom meeting on the 21st, the last day of darkness, and hopefully the light will never dim again.
Perfect. Yeah.
That's today.
That's today.
In the Convergence room at 4:00 Pacific time. And it's actually our first meeting, but the grandmothers have gotten together a couple times over the Convergences and interviewed people. So one of the things the grandmothers have done is joined with Dr. Shelley Ostrup in the World Water Law, because we're only as healthy as our water. And so that's one of the joinings that we've done, and I've been communing and working with Shelley and Jan, and part of this 30-day support group is that. So we're really just going to be setting the foundations this year and really figuring out where we fit. And Deborah's got a huge amount of talent. I think she's done a lot of different work that would be so beneficial. And this book might be a required reading for the grandmothers. I could easily see that. And yes.
I was just going to say, Deborah, if you're not sure what you want to do, one of the most essential, one of the basic parts, one of the chapters that's really the base, is how to find your cause and how to find and honor your daring thought. And she talks about how you see a problem, you feel a pain, there's something wrong, and immediately will come a daring thought. I will change this. I will do such and such. And immediately you squelch it because of the what she calls the counter thoughts. She doesn't call them violent. They're just counter thoughts. And the counter thought is, you don't have enough money. You don't have enough time. You have other things to do, honey. Like, you never change. People are just evil. And, all these counter thoughts, like, no, that's not going to work. And she talks about dealing with those counter thoughts to let that daring thought emerge. And the counter thoughts can be used actually to hone it. Yes, you don't have enough money. You're going to have to raise money, and honoring your daring thought. And Deborah, it might be anything, but it's going to come from you. It's going to come from this daring thought. And mostly we don't even recognize they're there. We squelch it immediately before we even realize it. And she's starting to say, when you notice that pain, notice what daring thought comes up, and then honor it. Notice it and honor it, and then deal with the counter thoughts. Some of them are just like to be dismissed. Like, you're too stupid to do this. Okay, I'm too stupid. I'm going to do it anyway. Yeah. To deal with the counter thoughts, and those that need to be dealt with, like, you don't have enough money. Oh, that's true. And then more daring thoughts will come up about how to raise that money. So, Deborah, don't despair that you don't know what to do. start to honor and notice and honor your own daring thoughts of what you can do, what's important to you, what's alive in you, and honor.
Yeah. So speaking of daring thoughts, one of the things that occurred to me as the role of the, million vegan grandmothers is to make sure that no one goes hungry.
Mm-hmm.
No one goes hungry in the world, right? And they all have access to healthy food. Now, this is something that the UN has been saying. UN has been saying we need to have zero hunger by 2030, but they're not doing it. So, meaning, that thought is there, right? It's there in the ether. Everyone says it needs to be done. And then they're saying, well, who's going to do it? Not us. We'll grow the economy, and then that'll help everyone's hunger. Hello? If you want to feed people, feed them. Isn't that that isn't that complicated, right, to understand? And especially when we all go vegan, suddenly there's plenty of food available. You cannot claim that there's food scarcity anymore. And that's where I think the daring thoughts come in. Your mother told us it's our responsibility to grab that daring thought and go for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm really looking forward to your meeting this evening. If you don't mind, I would like to just join. I won't say much. I'll just listen.
I would like to join too. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Wonderful.
just let me know what I can do to help you. Yeah.
You're amazing at organizing systems, Sailesh, and I'm not. And that's where and I think Deborah's probably the same. And Deborah just needs some direction on where we're going to go, as I've been putting together. So how I work, and this is what makes being, so we're not a million yet, Donna, but we had just done a manifestation course, and I said 1,000 vegan grandmothers was my initial home. And Sailesh said, no, 1 million. There's got to be a vegan grandmothers out there. And Judy was saying the same. So part of what I hear Deborah saying is that she just hasn't had much direction from me. And I totally understand that. And how I do it when something comes to me, as it had really strongly over the last couple of months, I immediately connected with Shelley and sent out a couple of emails, and we did a declaration. And then I have to let it work into its system until I can make space. And I was actually building us a tiny straw bale home, off the grid home this year. And so that took up every second of my time to the snowplow. And other than taking care of my grandkids, of course, and that commitment. So thank you, Deborah, and Sailesh and Deborah. I know you're both going to help with that organization level. So I'm a dreamer and writer. And I need systems people that are good at keeping that database organized. So thank you.
Yeah. That's what we are here to do. Okay, I'm here to help you with everything I know, which is systems engineering. How do you get all these flows happening so that you do have access to the food, so you are able to deliver the food to people, as you need it. I'm working with another group called Godharmic, and they're doing all the fundraising, and their mission is to make sure that everyone gets fed. But what kind of food? Who's going to do it? Those are the questions that are out there now. They're saying, okay, restaurants are going to do it. I said, no, I think you should be asking grandmothers to do it, right? Yeah. Because if we still rely on the old model of restaurants and charity from restaurants and things like that, you're not going to get healthy food. So,
right. People need to, it's pretty complex. There's an organization called the Well-Fed World, which does that. I've been a member of the Hunger Project actually for decades, and although I have spoken with them about veganism, not successfully,
right?
At least they are making a lot of difference with the farmers and having people be self-sustainable.
Right.
So I need to get back in conversation with them about it. And so, this is great having this conversation, because so there's another shore in sight that I might go to, is rekindling my relationship with the Hunger Project and say, hey, what can we do here?
Right.
It's ridiculous. And I actually don't know the status of how much meat and dairy they're doing versus plant-based.
Yeah.
So that would be something I need to go with. And then there's the shore. There's there's a group you may know of called Eat for the Earth.
Right.
What is it?
Beth
Eat.
Love and Eat for the Earth.
Eat for the Earth. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
And
Yes.
She's a vegan grandmother too.
yeah, she's a grandmother. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, this might be a question for someone another time. I am confused about the whole man-made climate change
Mm-hmm.
deal, and especially, all the animal agriculture.
Right.
I mean, are we saying animal agriculture doesn't cause climate change?
It's the leading cause of climate change.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the leading cause of climate. Think about it, okay? Even though we are burning down 30 million acres of forest every year, and even though we are bottom trawling 3 billion acres of the ocean floor every year, even though we are doing all these depredations on nature, nature is still sequestering more than half of the CO2 we are emitting into the atmosphere from fossil fuels. Okay? So
Okay.
imagine if we didn't deforest, if you just released 37% of the land back to nature, and you didn't bottom trawl the ocean, imagine how much healing she could be doing on her own.
Okay, but so are we not? I mean, I knew those facts, but are we not considering that man-made?
It is man. I mean, it is man letting go and saying, nature, please heal. I'm going to help you, as opposed to I'm going to fight you all the time. I'm going to burn down your forests. This is what we've been doing. I mean, we are still, at COP26, these leaders got together and said, we're going to continue burning down forests for another 9 years. I said, there isn't much left. When will you stop? So it's that daring thought, right? It's the daring thought of saying, okay, let us release land back to nature. Let us release the ocean back to nature and step back and see what happens. And then we can intervene to help nature. It's a different mindset altogether, as opposed to saying, how can I extract more in order to feed Jeff Bezos another $1 trillion? What the heck? He doesn't need any more.
And raising cattle, raising food like cattle and chickens and whatnot, takes up so much more resources. And
Exactly.
yeah.
And
So that
yeah, excuse me. It's the distinction, because I think of that as a man-made thing that we are doing.
Right.
And yet I hear, and it's in the comments, that man-made climate change is a hoax.
Well, yeah, that's.
I see. Okay.
There are some people.
I don't get this dichotomy.
There are some people who say that, but it's not. Look, everything we do either heats the climate or cools the climate. Everything we do, we don't have any choice. When you breathe, you're putting more CO2 into the atmosphere. That's going to heat the climate. Okay, so you have no choice. So you have to look at, okay, everything that we are doing and saying how much of it is heating, how much of it is cooling, and what is the net? And
Okay.
that we are heating at the moment. There's no question, because there
Yeah.
is more CO2 being emitted than than sulfur dioxide, which is cooling gas. So the accounting is done. We know that we are heating, and the temperature has gone up by 1 degree Celsius. And you can't argue with thermometers. They're going to tell you what's happening. The earth has a fever. So it's
Okay.
up to us to say, okay, the earth has a fever, and what can we do? So we are done with the climate heating phase of humanity. In the climate heating phase, we heated the earth by 1 degree Celsius. And this is actually good, because the earth can never go back to another ice age again. Okay, so we have done something amazing in that sense. We now recognize our own power, that we have done this. And once you say we have changed the climate of the planet, then we have a responsibility to regulate it, to maintain it.
Okay. Thank you. I get
That's
it.
the climate healing phase that we are in now. So the earth has a fever. You have to now reduce the fever, and then you have to keep the temperature constant, from that point on. And that's
Okay.
our job as a
All right.
species.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah. Yeah, I know there are people who argue with that still, but it's well established that any molecule you put into the atmosphere either heats or cools. It doesn't have a choice to do one or the other. And we are putting a whole bunch of stuff into the atmosphere, so let's not pretend we are not doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but this is the beginning of the dawn of a new era. This is the dawn of the climate healing era of humanity, and I think we are all here at the right time, so that we can contribute to making that happen. And thank you all so much for being here.
Thank you, Sailesh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you, grandmothers, fellow grandmothers.
Fellow grandmothers. I'm really looking forward to your meeting this evening. Are there any last words you want to tell the audience before we close this?
Honor your daring thought.
Honor your daring thoughts. Beautiful. Thank you.
Join the million vegan grandmothers.
Join the million vegan
Or
grandmothers.
grandchildren, or whatever you are.
Grandchildren and our anyone can join. Vegan.
Yes.
I am so grateful for your partnership, and I would say focus on gratitude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Powerful.
much.
Powerful.
Thanks.
Every breath is a gift.